My name is Mandy Purcell, and thank you for attending the 6th annual Commercial Executive Magazine's Fall Forum. I am honored to be on the stage with this amazing group of business leaders. Ernie, it's not that bad. And you canceled your pilot, right? Yes, okay. I am honored to be with this amazing group. A few years ago, I cold called Donald Trump and Jerry Moyse to be on the panel. Guess which one didn't get back to me? After many, many cold calls, finally, Mr. Trump had his people call my people, which is me, and he politely declined because he has a very full schedule. Eventually, Mr. Moyse felt very guilty, and he became a former panelist. So, looking at this wonderful panel, I am starstruck. And this proves that perseverance does pay off. So thank you, everyone, for being on the panel. We have a record-breaking 700 industry professionals in attendance. It appears that we have the entire real estate community in this room. Could you imagine if I locked you in here? Our economy would immediately collapse, since the masterminds in this room are the real driving force in Arizona's great economy. Woohoo, yeah, I'm glad you agree. Now please join me in thanking our amazing sponsors. Many thanks to Ted Bodner and Wells Fargo for being the premier sponsor from the beginning 6 years ago. So thank you, Ted. Please raise a glass to Wilming, our drink sponsor. These wonderful name tags that you're wearing are provided by Globe Corporation, Alliance Bank of Arizona, presenting our Broker of the Year Award. And hopefully you're enjoying the amazing appetizers provided by Walker & Dunlop. Special thanks to our select sponsors, BBVA Compass, Peterson Group, Jones Lang LaSalle, Security Title, Liberty Property Trust, Old Republic Title, Colliers, WM Grace, CBRE, and the Rockefeller Group. Now please welcome Ted Bodner with Wells Fargo.
Hi. It's my opportunity to welcome everybody here, and we at Wells Fargo are very happy to sponsor it again after many years, and really to thank Mandy for putting it all together. So once again, a big round of applause for Mandy for doing it all, and again, look forward to it, and just welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Don Gardner, I'd like to introduce Don to announce this year's Broker of the Year Award.
You want to dance?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Robert couldn't be here. Jim Lundy couldn't be here. Zito couldn't be here. I don't know how much further down the chain you want to go, but thanks for being here. It's our honor to be part and parcel of this award with Mandy and the group. But before we go, I just want to point out the staff that I brought here. Would you guys stand up? These are all lenders and support folks from Alliance Bank of Arizona's real estate group. So if you're looking for aggressive structures from a loan-to-cost, loan-to-value, low rates, non-recourse, low debt yield, don't talk to them. All right.
Okay.
My eyes are bad, so it's all yours.
Oh, he forgot the script, but that's okay. So this year, Don, you don't remember the script from last year? You don't? Okay. So
No.
every year we announce the Broker of the Year Award, and that person has been voted by their peers who have been featured in Commercial Executive Magazine. That was my other magazine I ran. Sorry about that, but
Do
Commercial.
you remember the script?
Well, no, but I wasn't expecting to do your part, your job. So The peers are voting on the Broker of the Year who have been featured in the magazine. And this year, Don,
The 2015 Broker of the Year Award goes to Barry Gable of CBRE. Need help? Good job, by the way. Hey, good seeing you again, Barry. There you go.
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to say something? Okay. Thank you very much. Mandy, thank you for this great event. And I want to thank Chris and Amy and Jamie on our team. Appreciate you guys so much. Great leadership at CB with Kathy and with Craig. And most importantly, our clients that we're blessed to call friends. Thank you.
okay, please welcome Michelle Mace to introduce Farmer Gone Wild, Conley Whipswinkle.
All right, good evening. I guess we're off to a great start from a time perspective, right? My instructions for today were to introduce Conley Wolfswinkle in a minute and a half, and then help Conley prepare for his role as moderator. I know, right? So I'm not sure which part of my job is more difficult, introducing the vast scope of Conley in a minute and a half, or trying to prepare him to ask questions instead of answer them. Let's hope Conley succeeds on his part, because I'm actually going to blow mine. I'm going to spend a little bit more than a minute and a half to share about Conley. Conley's a man that's often said to be ahead of his time, and he's often put himself in a position to read the tea leaves for Arizona. At public events such as these, Conley's usually in the keynote speaker role, but today he's your moderator. Today, you'll see him more like he is in his office at W Holdings, only he's a bit more dressed up. Not a lot, a bit. And the massage table for his visitors is sadly missing. Could you imagine 700 people trying to get massages today in Conley's office? Conley demonstrates intense listening surrounding the stories of people, their motivations, and how and where they're making deals, who they are partnering with, and how that impacts the big vision of growth for Arizona. In an unconventional way, Conley merges his awareness and qualitative understanding of human factors with his technical land expertise to form a constantly stirring vision about sustainable and profitable placemaking. He's previously been chosen by Phoenix Business Journal as one of the most influential business leaders in our community. He serves as a strategic consultant on more than 50,000 acres of land, including investment farming operations and many hallmark residential, retail, and commercial developments owned or under the control of W Holdings. One of his favorite assets to talk about these days is Harquahala Valley, a gorgeous valley 60 miles west of Phoenix that contains the Harquahala Aquifer and over 15 million acre-feet of water, enough water to service up to 500,000 homes a year. Water is a complicated subject for most of us, but this basin that I affectionately call Conley's bathtub has more than 3 times the capacity of Roosevelt, Apache, Bartlett, and Canyon Lakes combined, and more than half the capacity of Lake Mead. As important as capacity is, accessibility to move water is even more important. Friends, the CAP Canal runs through the Harquahala Valley, so it's easy to understand why Conley's so excited about it. It's the iPhone of water basins. All you have to do is plug it in. He's a native of Arizona, the land of copper, cattle, cotton, and citrus, none of which thrive without water. He cares deeply about Harquahala and really wants it to be a generational thing for his children and grandchildren. Conley began his career while he was just a freshman in high school, when he started leasing and farming land. He's an authentic entrepreneur and has always been on his own payroll. His favorite Saturday mornings still involve visiting local area farms. And if you're lucky enough to know Conley personally, you're the recipient of a precious pecan harvest during the holiday season. Although, with all the enthusiasm surrounding Harquahala this year, you might get a glass of water or a bottle of bubbly bath to go with your pecans. Over the years, W Holdings and its partners have been proactively improving the quality of life for current and future residents of Arizona. With the help of esteemed author, who's actually here tonight, Jack August, Conley's biography and his real estate methods are being professionally published. Conley served as a professor of practice at the W.P. Carey School of Business, and he's lectured in the MRED program. Some of his students are actually here as guests tonight. He occasionally speaks at Cornell University, where he is the only non-alum to serve on the Real Estate Council Board. He's enjoyed mentoring many real estate professionals over the years, and his apprentices have become some of his strongest competitors. Conley's a deep survivor, and one of the attributes of these kinds of people is a desire to work it out. He's been influential in developing the city that we have today. How many people can say they've been involved in real estate in this marketplace for over 50 years? Years ago, he settled a long and highly publicized dispute with the federal government. He never gave up. He worked it out, and there was resolve and closure. Perhaps he would actually be a good candidate for John Boehner's seat. Conley has learned lessons from the past, but he's focusing on the future, as noted with solar and water land uses. He reminds people to skate where the puck will be. He might not say the word megapolitan with the eloquence of Michael Crow, but he'll get one built. It's been my pleasure to spend precious time with him in preparation for today. Conley's been a client and friend for over a decade. Every time we're together, I'm in awe of his mental acuity, his toughness, and his ability to endure. I'm a marathoner. My friends and I run 26.2 miles for fun, and we would do almost anything for medals and a finisher shirt. We have a saying that depicts Conley perfectly. At mile 20, I thought I was dead. At mile 22, I wished I was dead. At mile 24, I knew I was dead. And at mile 26.2, I realized I had become too tough to kill. Conley's a man worthy of many marathon medals and finisher shirts. Today, I'm actually passing my New York 2012 marathon medal on to Conley. It was the year of Hurricane Sandy, when the race was canceled at the last minute, and New York City was on its knees. We ran anyway, and then we volunteered on Staten Island and helped displaced citizens. This, too, my friends, is the spirit of Conley. Run anyway and help others. I would have offered him my finisher shirt, but it wouldn't fit him. Ladies and gentlemen, Conley Wolfswinkel.
Michelle, I have to ask a question. I'm the only one puzzled in the room to really believe that that's who you were talking about. And I got to tell you something. I mean, holy shit, I got an allergic reaction all of a sudden.
You can tell the party's just about to get started.
Jesus Christ.
Wait till it's my turn. It was funny, I got a phone call. I dropped off, I got an early copy of the magazine, and I dropped it off by one of my special friends last night, and she called. And she says, Conley, after reading about the panelist that you're serving, he said one of them ought to be running for Joe Biden's spot that he's just leaving. And it is such an unbelievable thrill to be sitting with these five guys. And Mandy, has been after me for many, many years to try and feature me. And I said, Mandy, I've been trying to hide under a rock. The problem is I can't find the damn rock big enough to hide me. So finally, I was at the bar about 4 or 5 months ago, and Mandy and Christine were sitting having a drink, probably one of the first ones they've ever had. But they showed me who was on the panel. And I thought, gosh, I said, this would be great. They said, Conley, would you consider being the moderator? And I thought, this is unbelievable, because I can ask questions, and they can't ask questions of me. So, but I found out the real story, how this panel was put together tonight. we were sitting in the back getting mic'd up back there, and we were trying to figure out how there was such a distinguished panel. And I'm blown away that Mandy put this panel together. And it comes up that one of the reasons why I stepped up was because Ernie Garcia was on there. And Ernie and I go back 30 plus years, some tough times, lots of great times. So Ernie said the only reason I agreed, I'd been drinking too much that night. So then next, Andrew said the only reason I got on the panel is because Ernie got on the panel. So Ernie's trying to figure out how to get off this panel as quick as he can. So we're going to move on. Mandy has done an unbelievable job creating a vehicle to showcase Arizona. And I have lived here all of my life, and I don't like it. I was flying in the other night from Virginia for a wedding that I was at, and as I flew across the riverbed, I got to look down Gilbert Road, because as a kid, Mesa was only 10,000 people when I was a kid. So I like to follow the streets when I sit by the window on the airplane. Gilbert Road, then Alma School Road, picking them out, and finally flying down the riverbed I look, and there's Vestar's beautiful development there. Next, I look at State Farm, and I look at Arizona State University. We've got such a great university here. And then I look at Liberty Trust, Bill Hankowski, who's on the board, and John Duvall, who's done the work here, putting that project together. And we have a lot of unbelievable competitors in this room here. And I don't like it when we're rated number 10 or number 15, and Salt Lake City and Austin and Boise. Mike Ingram just said he just got back from Boise, and boy, it's thriving. For Howard Grace, in his article, when you read it, says his father sent him down in the 70s to Phoenix because Phoenix was such a bustling town. We have got to get this town turned around. We need the help from everybody. And we're going to get on with the introductions here on the panel. But it was very interesting that when I was asked to monitor this, I thought, wait a minute. Nate Nathan is always asked to monitor this. Why am I being asked? So I figured that Nate must have had a music gig tonight. So I've heard of Nate's band for 8-10 years and him playing the guitar and all, but I've never experienced him until this last month. I was at Ed Robeson's 85th birthday, and I went, this guy's incredible. I don't know if he's a Jimmy Buffett wannabe, an Elton John wannabe, or a Ray Charles wannabe, but he's good. So I've seen him twice in the last week, and I thought, you know what? So Andrew came up with a great suggestion. He said, Conley, he said, why don't we go to Greg Vogel at Arizona Land Advisors and see if he will front enough money where we can put Nate out on tour, on a music tour for the next year. So we may pass the hat later. It's time that Nate steps aside and lets some of these young guys in this room make a little more money instead of him making all the money he's making. To our panel, and what a treat it has been for me to spend time with these guys individually. Bill Hankowski, it's the first time tonight that we got to gather about an hour before the party started. What a class man. For George Getz, I've known of the Getz family for 30 years, and I kind of feel here today that we're heading out to the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby. And I have 5 American Pharoahs here. And I'm headed to the gate. We'll hope this works. What do I have to push, Mandy? Forward? So I kind of feel like I'm on the Jackass, or the And I'm just hoping I don't make a jackass out of myself tonight compared to all these American pharaohs that we're putting up with. Too late. Thank you, Andrew. All right, panelist introductions. Ernie Garcia, founder and CEO of Drive Time, the nation's largest private dealership, helping people with credit issues obtain a vehicle. 140 dealerships in 26 states, as the largest used car salesman in the country, also known by some of his friends as the Golden Peso. He knows something about turning ugly ducklings into swans. Did you know his ugly duckling sign is now in the Neon Museum in Las Vegas? Bert Lopez made an interesting statement about Ernie. Ernie is not only charming and charismatic, he is endowed with the gift of selling and negotiating. He can sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, and when you found out that it was not yours, you would still like him. So, and it's so true, Ernie, you're the best. Now, Bill Hankowski, what a great individual. Just spend a little bit of time with him. I mean, it was unbelievable, the conversation we had for an hour. I was so impressed. He's CIA of this, he's CEO of this, he's, I mean, he's involved in everything. But, I got thinking to myself, Bill, I don't think you've really outdone me, because in my life, I have a lot of initials behind me. IRS, RTC, FDIC, and last but not least, FBI. George Getz. So it's unbelievable. Sometime you have to get a copy of George Getz's family book. For 100 years, they were involved in making Chicago the city it is. It's unbelievable, the history. I got the privilege with Michelle and I to take a tour the other day of George's office and all the fascinating history. I read the book twice. I don't read any books. I was absolutely blown away. I asked one of my great mentors who's in the room tonight, Max Killian, who was one of the real estate icons of the Southeast Valley. He made the Dobson Ranch what it is, represented the Dobsons, sold the property to Desert Samaritan. He sold the property to Mesa Community College. He did the deal with Fiesta Mall and did one of the first master plan communities in the country. I asked Max, who was a very close friend with George's father, I said, what are the 5 words that best sum up the Getz family? And those are on the left-hand side of your screen: integrity, honorable, wise, insightful, and genuine. And I did not know the Arizona Community Foundation, which is now approximately $1 billion, giving roughly $50 million away, was started by George's father. So George, thank you for being here. It's an honor. Next, we've got one of the more colorful individuals I've ever met in my life. Now, I never had any idea that this guy, when I've spent time with Howard, I knew his father. They kind of called him Wild Bill. He was a gunslinger for the Grace family, has built or developed almost 300 shopping centers, but Howard could sign up for the movies, I think. So he was telling me about his major things on his bucket list, and number 1 on his bucket list is catching a 10-pound bass. Number 2 was to finish his college, get his college degree. He has 168 hours, I believe, but he's 9 hours short. It took him 6.5 years. So Andrew has agreed to sit with me after the forum. We have the past chairman of the, who runs the colleges in town?
That's good.
Who is it? Arizona Board of Regents, thank you. I haven't even been drinking yet. So Mark Killian's with us, so we're going to ask Mark Killian if he will specifically go and sit with Michael Crow and see if we can get an honorary degree for Howard Grace. The problem is Ernie Garcia in his bio, and I encourage you all, I have read the bios on Mandy's magazine 3-4 different times. The bios are unbelievable, and Ernie brought up that not only himself and myself never finished, I barely made it through high school, but Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Ernie and myself never got a college degree. So Howard, you maybe should be reconsidering getting that college degree. A little insight on Howard that I got from one of his employees for 20 years. I said, tell me some personal things about Howard Grace. And they said, well, Howard, you know, he always goes around in his pocket and he's got about, 50, 60, 70 pink slips. And they're the phone calls that he goes through every day. And he said, you may not get a phone call for, a long time from Howard. So I happened to get a copy of my pink slips. And there's calls in here, Howard, from 2 years ago from me that have not been returned. Last but not least, Andrew Cohen. So the reason I saved to introduce him last, okay? I told Andrew and Ernie up front, there will be no bribes to the moderator. So what did I receive this morning from Andrew and from Ernie? A Gucci briefcase. Unbelievable. Andrew is a true friend. So Andrew and I have done so much business together. It's so funny. His son Matthew's here tonight, and we fight and we bicker, and then we play kissy face, not actual kissy face, but we get along and have a lot of fun and laughs together. But, Matthew asks his dad when he sees me, he says, he says, are you talking to Conley now, or are you not talking to Conley? So I got to make sure I know what the rules are. But Bill and Andrew have done more to keep us afloat the last 10 years. It's been unbelievable. And when you look at the little slogan there on the glass, is it half full or is it they've already bought it and sold it? No one performs like these guys perform in town. And Andrew and his incredible wife, they serve on several boards, the Holocaust Museum in DC, and FOCOS, the National Orthopedic and Complex Spine Foundation. Andrew told me the other day I'm his oldest living friend. But he also says, Conley, when you die, it will be the biggest funeral in the valley. Not because you will be missed and loved, but because people will really want to see that you are really dead.
It's true.
One has to put up with a lot in this business. All right, let's get this show rolling. Success is being prepared for opportunity. Let's open up with a few comments about the national economy. This is Bill. I would like you to address us here. What is your assessment of today's investment climate nationally?
So after that, I'm supposed to answer this question. I'm pretty serious, right? Thank you, Conley. Thanks, everybody, for having me here. I feel a little out of place. I'm not sure I've gotten half of these inside jokes, but I'll try to keep up. By the way, I feel like Hillary Clinton tomorrow with these lights, right? Kind of a congressional panel or something. U.S. economy, 6 thoughts. I often get asked by analysts, what inning are we in, right? That's one of their shorthands for, where are things? And my answer now is, suppose we were in an extra inning game. So it might be the 7th inning, but it might go on longer than we think. And I think the reason that might be the case is that the downturn was so severe and unprecedented, and the recovery was so slow out of it, but in effect, we added a couple years to what's the normal cycle. So I actually think we've got a little bit of time in front of us. I don't think we're about to, hit a wall. That's number one. Number two is there's two factors, I think, that drive that. One is, it's very relevant here in Phoenix, housing starts. So we still are not at the 20-year average of housing starts. I mean, we've built a lot of apartments. You are here. They are everywhere in the country. But I'm talking single-family homes. We're just not there. If that just got back to the 20-year average, we're at about 60% of it, that would be a big driver to the economy. So I feel there's like a little bit of extra fuel in the economy. The second factor is employment. This year was the first time since 2007 that we had the same number of people holding a full-time job. We had more employment, but it was all in part-time jobs. This economy has taken a heck of a long time to get employment back. That's why so many people are anxious, because a lot of people still don't have jobs that they really would like to have. So I think if we could get employment back, housing starts back, that would be good. The danger is volatility. It's a much more volatile world, and it won't change. It's never going to be calm again, right? We're more interconnected. The fact that we have to worry about the euro and Greece debt, the fact that we have to worry about China's economy and Brazil's economy, the fact that all of this affects the U.S., so we don't control it all. But net, I think we've got a couple of years in front of us, and I think the biggest risk is that the Fed can't unwind their balance sheet in a way that doesn't disrupt the economy. That's what I actually worry about. I don't worry about all those foreign things. I worry that we actually mess up how we handle our own economic affairs. But I think right now, it looks good. Somebody said to me, it's Goldilocks. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's the best of, it's just warm enough. So I think it's a great time to be in the real estate business.
Conley,
Thank you.
Conley, I'll tell you, we talked earlier. It'd be good for them to know the perception of Arizona that you have coming from all the other states that you're in. That was fascinating to me.
From my perspective?
Yeah, for your company, and for your own perspective.
See how he takes over control? I love it, But he nailed that question perfectly.
Ernie wants to get to his wine already, so get moving.
I'll be quick on this. We're in 24 U.S. markets, major metropolitan areas, and we're in the United Kingdom. So we get around and I have a perspective. This area, Phoenix, Arizona, has been known for growth. I mean, right? This is where people have come. For 5 decades in a row, we were like the number 1 or 2 fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. Out of this downturn, that hasn't been the case. I don't think you should all be sort of beating yourself up about it. One of the reasons I don't think that happened is because nobody could move. So the housing crisis made a situation where that guy in Detroit that wanted to move to Phoenix couldn't sell his house. So he wanted to come here, he just couldn't get here. So it goes back to, I think there's a U.S. migration, internal migration within the country, just stopped in 09, 10, and it's only beginning to pick up again. So what needs to happen here is we need more people coming. That's what this place is known for growth. It's exciting to see companies coming, jobs coming, but I think you got to turn back on the population growth. That's what would drive it. That's what historically has driven it. There's no reason it can't happen again.
Thank you, Bill. Ernie, you are all Globetrotters and travel extensively. What do you hear about Arizona when you're traveling?
Well, we have had issues. And I would disagree with Bill a little bit in the sense that in past recessions, Arizona did come out of it better and faster than every other reason. So I think today not today, I think Governor Ducey's doing a great new job. I think the perception is starting to be different. But over the last 5 or 6 years, Arizona gets beat up back east. Now, I'm in New York City a lot, and we have a place there. And I'll tell a little story, and it's, you got to remember New York is completely the other side of the political spectrum than Phoenix. But they do, they're pretty educated there. And I was in the Apple store, and I'm getting ready to check out, and it's loud, and I can't really hear that well. And the gal asked me, "Are you from the States?" And I said, "Well, I'm from, I thought she said, "What state are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from Arizona." And she looked at me and she said, "Regrettably, that's still part of the States." So I think we've had a perception problem. I think that, Sheriff Joe, regardless of how you feel politically, doesn't do us any favors outside of Arizona. And I think when a few of those things change, I think you'll see people coming back. I think it's a big back office town. We don't have any headquarters here. You go to Dallas, you go somewhere else. There's a lot of activity that we really could use here. And I think a lot of it is our political stance on a lot of issues.
Ernie, you made an interesting comment the other day when we were visiting with you about you probably wouldn't be located here with your corporate headquarters today. Address or just give a little bit on that. You mentioned that on Dallas.
Well, it's hot here. And I'm getting old. Phoenix has been great to me. Obviously, we've built a nice company here, and we're not moving. But if you said you're starting NewCo day one, I think Texas is a pretty good place to start because you have a much friendly business climate. You have a lot of growth. You've got a lot of corporate headquarters moving there. I've been in Dallas a lot lately, and when you really see what's going on there, there's a difference and a different feel. And if I had to do it for just where I wanted to live, I'd probably move to California.
So Howard, well, you all have connections to commercial real estate. You have exposure to many different industries and business sectors. Are there some sectors that are doing better than others? Which ones are those? And I would also like you to talk about your exposure in the gaming industry that we talked about the other day. Howard and his father and some other partners of ours were the first ones to ever get the first gaming compact approved up in Prescott at the Sheraton Hotel. And you look at the Indians and all the money that they are making, it is unbelievable on gaming. Is there a chance to privatize some gaming? It would be nice if some of those dollars, when I look at it's nice that the Indians are spending money on all the stadiums and everything else, but I also hate to see, the dollars. I was just curious on your opinion on that.
We got into it in late '08. We were just about ready to go belly up with the RTC days. Banks had called a bunch of our notes, and we had a hotel up in Prescott, Arizona, and leased on a local Indian reservation, and we had a cocktail lounge where the year before we'd made about 50 grand, and in the whole year, and I still remember we gave our tribe, I think, $50,000 to file a lawsuit to think we might get, we thought we were going to make 100 grand for the year in the cocktail lounge. And we put 113 slot machines in there. And we had spent a bunch of money along with another company in Tucson to get a fancy computer accounting system because we didn't trust anybody. We had no clue what we were doing. And the first night, I can still remember, we'd undersized the air conditioning in there. It was 110 degrees. We shut it down at 10 o'clock. We're all in there. We've run out of coins and tokens. We're down to our underwear, taking all the coins out, trying to figure, because the system was so screwed up, we knew there's no way we could have made that much money in that 20-hour period. We made more money in that one day than the hotel made the whole year. My dad then stopped doing real estate, and we opened up a bunch of Midwest casinos. And we did that he did that from '88 till 2004. He passed away. But, there's a ton of money in that. We got out of it in '05. I didn't like the industry, where we were at in the Midwest with a bunch of riverboat casinos. You prey on people's addictions. And I would get a book every month about this deep, and it was just all the losers. The book with the winners was about this big. And, but at some point, maybe that should be taxed in Arizona, because it's a lot of money. I mean, you just look at the casinos here in our state, it's millions on top of hundreds of millions. And we still have all the social ills that go with it, It was very, very good for us for a long time.
Criticism is the height of jealousy. I don't want to criticize you at all, but I'm a little jealous, Howard. So I would have liked to have been helping you collect those quarters and dollars. So, George, all of you are involved in attracting new business into Arizona. When Arizona doesn't get the deal, what state it is awarded to and why, and how are we getting in our own way?
Well, it's something everybody probably in the room deals with on a daily basis, is how can we attract more business to Arizona? And in the work that we do on the industrial side in particular, we compete against Reno, Salt Lake City, Vegas, and the Inland Empire is really our direct competition for RFPs for businesses that want to come to Arizona for large industrial users. And we've gotten our fair share. I know John Graham and Sunbelt and those guys have been successful in landing some nice businesses to come out to the west side with Sub-Zero expanding and REI and Dick's. And we just need to get more of them. And we need to figure out how we can compete better with the site selectors that bring those users out here and with the sites that we have. Where the hard part is driving time and calculating truck turnarounds from the ports. As we all know, the ports play an important role in distributing goods to the different states. And so it's important for us to be able to find sites where trucks from the ports and trains can come to here, be able to deliver their goods, and then turn around and get back to the ports within a day's travel time. And we've been successful. We need to be more successful, and I think we just need to get word out to more businesses that Arizona is a friendly state. We are competitive when it comes to real estate prices and labor and all the other issues. But we do compete heavily with Nevada, Utah, and the Inland Empire.
Thank you, George. Andrew, I can hardly wait for all this. As business leaders, what words first come to your mind when I say Arizona? And tell me more about that, if you would.
So first off, Ernie's commented about it's hot here in the summer. It's hot here in the summer. And they say the more money you make, the hotter it gets. So that kind of tells you where Ernie's at in the scheme of things. But the truth of the matter is, there's plenty of opportunity here. And I wrote down some words while we were talking, and I just wrote great opportunity, evolving educational and medical excellence. We have great tourism here. We have really a youthful place. Everybody thinks of this as an old state when you go back east. They think it's Sun City, and it's exactly the opposite. I look at my children who are 23 and 26 respectively, and all their friends want to figure out how to go here. We've got a demand lifestyle here. We have a very unique thing. Do we have some problems? No question about it. I think most of those are policy driven, and I'm not here to talk about politics, but I will tell you, I think there's some policies that need to be changed. I think that there are some concepts that need to be embedded. Ernie mentioned he would love to do business in Texas. My guess is some tax structure would have something to do with some of those decisions, in addition to the youthful nature of that state. I think to host success, you need a complement of many things: effective political leaders, a good economic foundation, and I think you need to be perceived as being fair and being rooted in the ability to get something done. There's a lot of brokers and business leaders in this room, and I'll tell you, I think most of them will tell you the environment's here pretty fair. It's competitive, there's no question about it. Every table here's got a broker at it that's competing for the same business. But I think it just needs to be viewed as fair to everybody, and if it's fair, I think people are happy to participate in the community.
Anyone else have anything to add to, we talked a lot about, we used to have the Phoenix 40 here. And one of my concerns is politically, are we reaching out to the right young people that are figuring out how to put this state in a different momentums? What industries should we be recruiting in here in Arizona? Just like Bill Levine and Andrew Cohen, if you have a loan request, you're getting 24-hour service. We're not even going to talk about Alliance Bank or some of the other banks here, but how quick that service is. But what do we need to do? Are there 5 guys, 10 guys, when a new company comes to Arizona, What can we be doing to absolutely figure out how to give the kind of incentives and have the authority to give those incentives to get the type of industry that we want and need here in Arizona? Who played with my clicker? Challenges. You guys don't have the benefit of this. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste, and you're not a man until you've been broke at least twice. I'm a hell of a man. And make it back again. So I keep wondering, you know, if I'm a 3-time winner or a 20-time loser, but at least I'm still here and standing. So Howard and Ernie, when you talk about, I had the privilege with Darren Pitts introduced me to Roger Staubach, and I got to spend a little time with Roger. And I'll address this to a lot of the young people. You know, Roger Staubach said that he got virtually nothing out of winning 2 Super Bowls, but the 2 Super Bowls that he lost absolutely molded his whole life. And I have looked at the challenges in my life, the defeats in my life. Every time I get hit over the head with a sledgehammer, I say to myself, what great experience is going to come out of this disaster? And to Howard and Ernie, some of you mentioned immigration as a serious issue. If you mentioned Sheriff Joe, that's a serious issue. Impacting Arizona, what are some of the problems or concerns you're observing in the real estate relative to immigration? Workers, times to complete jobs. Norm Nichols is here today with us from Fulton Homes. And the horror stories that I'm hearing from these home builders, that even if they can sell the homes, they cannot find the labor to frame these homes, to complete these homes. And I've gone through lots of cycles in this market, and I'm convinced one of these days this cycle's going to turn around, but where are those employees, you know, going to be coming from? So I would just like Howard and Ernie, and in fact all the panelists, just whatever thoughts they might have on immigration, you know, to share those with us, please.
Well, I think, first of all, you've got to understand, and I think it gets back to an earlier point that we were talking about, is growth is what creates a lot of activity, and that's growth in population, and what's happening with America today in general, and Phoenix in particular, is we are having a slow growth. We're not having as many kids as we used to have. When you add on top of that, we've got an immigration policy in Arizona that's very difficult, and you're pushing people away and they're moving back to California. Why is California with higher taxes beating Arizona? They're growing faster than we're growing. They have a more welcoming state. I'm not saying we should do one thing one way or the other, but I'm saying a byproduct of some of the policies we have are workers are leaving and people are leaving, and you're not producing more people. And as you said, people can't move here like they used to move here, and that's what's created the problem. It's really a macro problem, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And the state needs to decide, do they want to be like the little portion of the Republican Party that's holding it up right now? Because if you continue to send out that message, nothing is going to change.
I think Ducey's doing a good job, but immigration is our biggest problem. You know, you go somewhere back east and they look at us like idiots. I mean, they still think everybody has a horse and takes it to work every day. You know, but workers, I'm building a house. We couldn't find framers for 60 days. You know, concrete guys. There's a labor pool that just left the country, left Arizona. They're somewhere else. They're not back in Mexico, but it's getting better. And hopefully, if we get some more growth, we're going to have to figure out our immigration problem to get the construction workers here. So far, costs haven't gone dramatically up, maybe 20%, 25%. But if we get growth like we used to have, we're going to have real problems.
Conley, can I make,
Absolutely.
I don't know what the right immigration policy is for the state of Arizona, but going back to the attraction question you asked a couple minutes ago, I find that many companies, the number one issue that drives their location decision is labor. Can they get it? Is it educated? Is it affordable? Is it available? And so the places, Texas is a good example. By the way, I would second you. I think Texas is the best place right now to invest in the U.S. But they are training young people. They have an educated workforce. It's staying there. It's not leaving. And others are being attracted. If you're educating people here and they're leaving, that is a big problem. I mean, that's not, that doesn't attract, but that's your foundation for tomorrow. And you asked about where are jobs coming and what's going on. I mean, there's no question, and it's, I saw it in your building today, right? I mean, what is driving your business are those young people who are doing technology things that are going to help you have a better business model, right? And you're trying to create an environment, a work environment for them to be in but you need that labor pool. And so I think we're in an era where companies follow employees, employees don't follow companies. And part of that is you need workers. And if that means you have to be thoughtful about immigration, I think you need to be thoughtful about immigration.
And as a matter of perspective there, we're headquartered here, always going to be headquartered here. But to put it in perspective, we have 5 stores in Arizona, in Phoenix, 1 store in Tucson. We have 34 stores in Texas. And it's a very small piece of our business here, and it's just because there's just not that growth at that lower end worker.
But all that being said, I'd rather develop real estate in Phoenix than anywhere else in the country. Sometimes we don't know how good we have it here, I think. I mean, when was the last time we had a hurricane? When was the last time we had flooding like South Carolina? When was the last time our airport was shut down because of snow? Sometimes we don't know really how good we have it here. And I think we all travel around here. We can live a lot of places we chose to pick here.
Andrew, if you would, after that comment from Howard, what are some of the important attributes of great cities? And can you talk to us about the role of infrastructure in those great cities?
Yeah, I think communities are really judged by the condition of their buildings, their infrastructure. People really look at that. It makes a big difference. And I think Ernie and Howard make a great point as it relates to we need an immigration policy because something has to be done. None of us up here are smart enough to figure out what that is. But something does have to be done to go ahead and allow for our infrastructure to continue to grow. We have a very unique complement here. We've got great airports. I mean, our airport, if you travel around and you're through airports, our airport's fantastic. I've been involved with the airport for 10 years, and we have great food choices now. All of those are like local opportunities, whether it's Sam Fox's restaurants or Bob Lynn's restaurants or all of the local spots we go to are now embedded in all of the terminals. We've got great bond ratings for the airport. We've got great infrastructure. We don't have a lot of CapEx. But we don't take advantage of those opportunities to go ahead and build on it more and more. And that's where I really find that we're doing ourselves damage. We do not complement all of the resources that we have here. And I agree 100% that jobs will go where the employees are, not where the employer is. That's exactly right. We're seeing that every place. Texas, North Carolina, Florida, Nevada. And I think we have to change the perception of Arizona outside of Arizona. We need cheerleaders. Every person in this room is a cheerleader. Ernie talks to people every day, whether it's a girl at the Apple store or when he's traveling or any of us, right? You have to change the perception. I just didn't know if she thought he was from out of the country from the way he looked. He was nervous, the truth of the matter is I think it's our job, it's the governor's job, it's the politicians' job, not to get in the way of development, as Howard said, and start to micromanage what color the buildings are going to be, where they're going to be, the setbacks, how we're going to do it. We've all had those frustrations, but to really be cheerleaders for the state. And we don't have that. We don't have an organized effort for that. And I think that's where we really dropped the ball.
One of the comments that they said since Arpaio and this Russell Pierce, the immigration bill, we had 175,000 workers out there. Today, I think we have 105,000. And one of our investors is one of the larger plastering contractors in the country. or pardon me, in the state. And he told me something last week that just blew me away because I don't do very good with these toys. I'm going backwards. Okay, so how do I go
That's
forward?
happened before.
Here. Michelle, help me. I want the bridge. I want the bridge. So I have a little story on the Golden Gate Bridge. And for 100 years, people went across the Golden Gate Bridge. They went to work and they paid a toll. And when they came home at night, they paid another toll. So they're backing up, just like lots of you people were backing up trying to get in here tonight, and we apologize for that. But after hundreds of millions of people crossed that bridge, someone came up with one simple idea. They said, take the one side of the toll booths out of the bridge and double the toll. Can you imagine the waiting time and everything? Just one simple thought, but it took hundreds of millions of people, because that's how we operate. Now, I have been trying to think, how do we solve this labor problem that we have? And Mandy said, I can't get into politics, so I can't say Sheriff Joe has got to go. But, I mean, this guy has cost us billions and billions and billions of dollars. And, you know, today, 50 guys got to step up and put $100,000 up, or 100 guys got to put $100,000 up. And this guy has absolutely helped destroy this state. And as Michelle and I were debating back, sorry, Michelle, I dated Michelle. My partner is Michelle, so, but not this Michelle. So,
Were you lucky?
but this framer, the plasterer, said that there's a program with the Obama program, and I've never heard about this. I'm thinking, how do we get 20, 30,000 employees here? Because the guy who's a framer, his son doesn't want to be a framer. The guy who's a plasterer, his son doesn't want to be a plasterer. Where do we get this workforce? And I'm thinking, can we get it from the jails? Can we get it from, the institution that these people are imprisoned on? And I heard something absolutely brilliant. And Michelle had made a comment, you got Donald Trump, everyone, because immigration and the wall is a great political thing. Michelle made a comment the other day. She said, maybe we should be building bridges to Mexico and not walls. And there's a program that the Obama administration has that I was told about the plasterer. He said that you have to run an ad on Hispanic stations or on newspapers or whatever, and you say that you are out to hire experienced, skilled labor. And he said, we cannot absolutely find additional laborers. He said, these guys are making $100,000 a year. That's a tough job walking around on stilts. Could you just imagine if you saw me walking around on stilts? I don't think I could make $100,000 a year. But I'm just saying, what a great program that you have 400 employees and you reach out to your employees, cousins, nephews, whatever they are in Mexico, and the company has to sponsor and be responsible for these people. So what a great way to bring 10,000 people to the workforce. But these guys are so excited that they might be able to pick up 50 more employees. But, Andrew or so made the comment, well, we can't figure out a solution. There is a solution somewhere. But that's as close as I've heard to a great idea on immigration that I've run into. So, I know Mandy's winking at me, get going. These guys want drinks and alcohol. Okay, Ernie, great question for you on rebranding Arizona. What do we do? How is our governorate structure in Arizona different than other states? Are there other states that have leadership or governorate structures that we could learn from? And I was thinking of your story, what you had to say about New Jersey and the governor and his functions.
Well, first of all, I think most of us here would agree that Doug Ducey's doing an incredible job. He's put a great new face on Arizona. I know the people from Apple, the people from Uber are really excited about him. He is pro-business, and he is ready to go, and I think that's fabulous. The governor of New Jersey, who's currently running for president, but the actual office of the governor of New Jersey is very unique in this country in that it's 100% the governor has a say of every appointee, everything he rules. That being said, the one in Texas, the governor has the least authority of anybody, and it's pretty clear that Texas is beating New Jersey in every economic metric that there is. So I don't really think necessarily structure is the issue. I think the real issue is leadership and presenting a united front and being open for business. And I think we're really making progress on that. I think we make just a few minor little political changes locally, and I think Phoenix could be back in the middle of it because it really is a nice place to live. I joke about moving to Texas. You really don't want to live in Dallas, but and my grandkids aren't there. But really, there is a lot of things that can happen here. But I do think we need leadership.
Bill, Liberty Property Trust has a unique philosophy of establishing local offices in each market where you do business. Liberty often enjoys a 5 to 8% occupancy lift over its competitors. Tell us more about the philosophy of local offices, and while it seems it would be more costly for your company, how is it a win-win for Liberty and for the communities where you do business?
Yeah, we do believe in having a local presence in every market we're in. Okay, it's cocktail time. That's good. And John Duvall, who you mentioned earlier, who's in the audience here, leads our team here in the Phoenix market. And the reason we think about that is our basic business model is a local presence with a national platform. If we wanted to just own a bunch of real estate and behave like the markets, in other words, have the same occupancy the markets have, we could just buy a bunch of real estate, hold it, and we'd be like an index fund. Well, our shareholders don't pay us to be an index fund. Our shareholders pay us to win. And we think the only way to win is to be in the market. And I think this is a classic example of that, this being Phoenix and Arizona. So our ability to have somebody here, and this community has been very welcoming to us, which we appreciate. A lot of people in this audience have helped us, sometimes as vendors, as contractors, as brokers, as customers, so we deeply appreciate that. But the way that happens is you have to be here. You have to be looking, you have to understand the local communities, where are people interested in growth, what will they live with. You have to understand the local business community and where are the opportunities to have customers. You have to understand the local real estate and brokerage community. We don't think you can do that from afar. You have to have feet on the ground. Real estate's a local business. I mean, it's nice that we can bring a national, a large public company balance sheet to it, so we don't have to, we don't have to get a construction loan, we don't have to get a mortgage, and that's all. That empowers our teams on the ground. But we're only going to be effective with teams on the ground. It's been our philosophy from the beginning. It will remain our philosophy, and we think it's what works in the business. And you're absolutely right. It is a more expensive model. We don't even, at one point we thought about having call centers for property management complaints. We don't have a call center. If you're our customer, I want you to call an office in Phoenix because we're going to know, that there was an accident on the expressway and that's why, something's not working right now, or we're going to know what's going on. You're going to know, you're going to have a personal relationship with us. That's what we believe in. We think it's worth the cost.
Any of you wish to expound on anything that Bill's saying, or Andrew, you've never been speechless yet in your life.
Enjoyed listening.
George, you have 4 generations. Let me see if I can get my slides to where I want them. I think I already hopped over.
It's been waiting.
We're going backwards again. Here, why don't you do them right? So. Thank God for Michelle.
It's freezing up.
The mine, let's do the mine one. Someone once told me, they says, Conley, if I'm going through a minefield, I want to be following you. And in fact, Howard, you told a cute story the other day. I'm going to back up a little bit, but you got to tell the story.
I've often said if I was, some bar in the Philippines, and I walk out the wrong exit, and I walk out to an alleyway, and the door shuts behind me, and I look to the right, and I look to the left, and there's a bunch of little guys with knives at each end of the alley. And I could only ask for one person to come down to help me. It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's not John Bon Claude, or I'm gonna ask for
Von
Conley.
Damme.
We're gonna get out of that alley. We're gonna be cut up, but we're gonna be living at the end of the day.
So the thing is, thank you for the compliment. John Von Damme, looking like that, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, you don't look like any of them. We're gonna survive.
Survival's important. Challenges, George. You have 4 generations to reflect on. Your book, Tall Shadows, talks about some of the challenges. What are some of the more significant challenges that you and your family have had to overcome personally or professionally that made you better, resilient, and still here 4 generations later?
Okay, well, I'm going to get back to what makes Arizona great before I talk about that a little bit, because I didn't get really a chance to weigh in. But, you know, my grandfather came out here in the 50s to buy a ranch in Kingman. And I don't think anybody, well, maybe Conley was here in the 50s, maybe Max was here in the 50s. But you look around this room, it's really filled with a bunch of young people. And, you know, when I grew up, going to the Suns game was a big deal because that was the only thing in town, maybe spring training. Since then, we've got all 4 sports franchises in Arizona. Not a lot of cities can claim that. We've got a world-class Phoenix Children's Hospital here. We've got a great banking system. We've got transportation. We really, I mean, if you look at what Phoenix has and what the metropolitan Maricopa County has, we've got all the right pieces to make this city really great. I mean, we're not really missing very much. And it just gripes me when we hear from people out of state that they still think we're, you know, living in the desert in teepees. You know, it just amazes me. And it really takes people to come to this state and for us to try to promote this state outside of the state to know what great state this really is. And you know, we get people writing articles in newspapers that are, you know, begrudging about the state and saying what's bad about the state. We don't really need that. I just don't understand why we have people that are so down on the state, whether it's jealousy or whatever the case may be, because if you look back when I grew up here, you know, there wasn't as many sporting activities you could go to, there weren't as many concerts you could go to, there weren't as many things you could do outside. I mean, you grew up here, you know what it's like. And you look out there today and there's so much to do. We've got incredible entertainment. We've got so much to do and so much to offer. And when people and employers are looking to come to Arizona, they're checking boxes. I mean, when you fill out an RFP for a company to move here, right, it's do you have a healthcare system? Do you have, workforce? And do you have all the, and if you go down the list, I mean, we compete extremely well with every other city that's getting this business. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us to really get out there and really pound our chest to say how good Phoenix is, and we're going to get the state farms. You know, we're going to get large companies that want to move here because they will come here and they will see how good it is. So anyway, that's my take on it. We just need to do a better job, I think. But that didn't answer the question. You know, running a 4th generation company is not easy, and as everybody's probably heard, it's hard to get from 1 to 2. It's harder to get from 2 to 3. And then on to 3 and 4. I kind of found it easier actually going from once you get out of the founder's disease and the patriarch that has the starting of the business, because he doesn't want to turn over the business to the 2nd generation. Or if he does, it's on his deathbed type of thing. And so, you know, the transition from my great-grandfather to my grandfather I think was challenging. And actually my grandfather, you know, held onto the reins pretty tight until he passed away too. Fortunately, my dad, luckily enough, said, I don't want to be that guy. And he brought me into the company when I was fairly young and very green and just had a little bit of banking experience behind me. And, but he included me in everything we did. And we sat at the same desk. I heard his conversations. He heard mine. I was in all the meetings that he wanted to attend. And it was really learning the business by an expert who wanted me to be included in it. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons that, you know, I take away from from who I am today and what I've become, but I owe a lot of it to my dad, who, Conley, you've known him for a long time, and a lot of people in this room have known him as well. So, but there's challenges as well. It's not just a bed of roses all the time, and getting past a nice business and here, just take it over. I've got a brother who's also in the business and a sister who's involved but not in the business as an owner. And we've got 7 kids in the next generation. And, the biggest test for me going forward is how do we educate and grow and have that next generation understand how to be respectful and how to learn the business and do what they want to do. And fortunately, we've got kind of a governance system in place so that we can help mentor the next generation and grow that next generation. I think that's critical if we're going to grow from 4th generation to 5 generations. But there's a lot of good, and there's also some challenges with it. It's not perfect all the time, but as long as everybody's on the same page, wanting to drive to get the same kind of results in the family, and you don't have a rogue child out there, it certainly makes it a lot easier.
All of you as panelists are giants of industry. Your path has not likely been straight up. Do you learn more when you win or when you lose? What challenges have you experienced? What did you learn from your challenges? Now that may take us to midnight, so we're going to keep this short, and we're going to be headed for drinks shortly. But challenges, Ernie, for you and I have a lot of those initials behind our names.
Yeah, I'd really rather not.
You want to pass on that one?
I think it's better to have them when you're young. And I was fortunate enough that my real problems were I was relatively young and didn't think anything other than you just wake up the next day and you go fight another battle. And I think as you get older, you just try and learn from all those challenges. And you do find that the old cliche, it's better to be lucky than good, is really true. A little bit of luck goes a long way to making people successful. And I've really had my share of that. But most wealth is created in, past 45 or past 50. And I think the reason for that is if you are capable of learning, you've learned by then, you've made a lot of mistakes, you understand them, and you try not to make them again.
I think Ernie brings up a good point. So if you make your mistakes before your biggest earning capacity years are ahead of you, is really good timing.
Less costly.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But I think the mentoring thing is really important. I don't think mentoring ever stops. I'm mentored all the time by people that I know. In fact, if I have an issue, Ernie has been helpful, or if Ernie has an issue, or if Ed Robeson has an issue, I don't think that ever stops. And I think this community actually is really good about that. The real estate community, for all the bashing it gets, I actually think is very healthy and does a good job in mentoring. The challenges that come in business, you can deal with. You know what? You make money, you lose money. You have to have your health. We had some issues with our son early on in his life that were very challenging, and that we were not as fortunate as people today, because Phoenix Children's Hospital at the time was 2 stories in Good Sam, and they didn't have the right needles. It was just a very archaic thing. So now you look at the evolution of Phoenix and the evolution of what's available to people, and those challenges get a little easier because it's in your backyard. It can help you figure it out. You can find out how to solve those problems. So I think that if you're lucky, I think the harder you work, the luckier you get. But I think you have to have a lot of luck also.
Anyone else?
Treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. And this market in Phoenix, it doesn't matter whether you're retail, commercial, or office. Everybody likes everybody. You can go to Kansas City or St. Louis, they've all sued each other 10 times. You go to Los Angeles, they don't have these kind of events in Los Angeles. I think everybody's pretty friendly in this town, and that's unique. I think we have it, Texas has it, and a few other markets when you go to a local ICSC event. But I've always kind of treat everybody the way you want to be treated, whether you're the bartender, or the valet guy, or you got $50 million in your pocket.
Andrew?
Except you.
Speaking of the bartender.
In closing, I would like to share a little bit, and just to share mainly with the younger guys out here. And I've been very blessed that I've had in my life two of the finest ex-wives in the world. And they are here, but we've endured a lot as a family. My oldest son was killed, our oldest son was killed 30 years ago. And I say to each and every one of you, as Andrew and everyone has said, and a good, strong woman stands behind every man. And there's some real challenges on this panel. And Andrew's wife, Amy, Ernie's wife, Joanne, George's wife, Diane. Appreciate those people, the kids, the grandkids. When my son was killed, I stood in Manhattan, and I said, if I owned every building in Manhattan, would I give that up tomorrow to have that son back? We are all multi-billionaires. We have so much to learn from the challenges that we all face. And Mandy had asked me in the beginning, she said, what are things that we all share? And that's the main thing that we all share. We love our friends, and it's so special having friends. It's so special that you put up with us. Unless you guys have something else you'd like to share, we'll turn it over to Mandy.
Good job.
Sheriff Joe's waiting in the parking lot.
The panel paid him off.
I didn't say anything.
Conley, do you want to do any Q&As right now at this point?
Thank you. I forgot about Q&A, so.
I'm going to give you a note that you weren't looking.
All right, I'm sorry. Question and answers to any of the panelists from the floor. God, this is an easy crowd. Oh, here's different ones, okay. Question for Mr. Cohen. Boy, I better read this before I read it to myself before, oh. So all I have to do is read this? Okay, question for Mr. Cohen, but I'd like the whole panel's reaction as well. I know you have opportunity to review almost every deal done in the state. Can you share with us your process of evaluation? What are you looking for and your turnaround time on a final go, no, go decision?
We go fast, we don't go stupid. And we look at things very quickly. Whether it's a loan, we'll give you a response the same day that you come in and talk to us. We underwrite things first from a borrower standpoint. When we're lending money, we feel a good borrower can take a bad deal and make it good. A bad borrower can take a good deal and make it bad. So from a lending standpoint, that's how. From a real estate perspective, no different than anybody else here. It's a family limited partnership that holds legacy assets, so it's really our goal to go out and acquire assets that can be held for multi-generations.
Okay, and we've got one last question. Some of us in the room have been here for the past recession and during the late 80s, early 90s for the RTC recession. I'd like to hear the panel compare and contrast these two recessions and what was their experience with the government in each of these two time periods. That's a pretty fully loaded question there. I'll go last on that one.
I'll refuse to answer. It's very different. I mean, first of all, that was 30 years ago, so those of us that were in the middle of it then were a lot younger. And probably not as capable of navigating it as we were the second one, but they were both brutal. I think the difference is this time around, there's a lot more liquidity that came back to the market quickly. In 1987, with the RTC, there was no money around, and you bought assets for things that I don't know will ever happen again. We were buying apartments, at 15 caps. And so, but there was no money. You couldn't buy them. So it's just a very different deal. For me, I was younger. I went down hard in that first one. We were able to navigate a little better in this one, but it was still difficult. We were fortunate that we never did lose any money in our company, but we did downsize the company from 104 stores to 70. We're back now past where we were, but I think they were different.
Conley?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're dramatically different in two respects. One is, to some extent, the RTC, real estate was a little bit to blame for the problem. Real estate was not to blame for this last problem. It was a financial sector problem that was stunning in its scope and scale and depth. I remember every Sunday I'd go on Bloomberg to figure out which, who's buying Wachovia, who's taken over, is Lehman going under. Every weekend, a major financial institution in this country was sold, went under, the feds were negotiating. It was unbelievable. You almost had an entire financial meltdown. What I think is starkly different, and is where the real estate business is today versus where it was 30 years ago. This is a mature business. Take REITs. There are big REITs. The entire market cap of all REITs back in 1994, which is the beginning of the modern era, was like $8 billion. Today, it's like $800 billion. You have transparency. You have the amount of capital that wants to be in this sector, because people know what's going on. I used to kid, here was real estate, the business 30 years ago. Breakfast with a broker, lunch with a broker, cocktails with a broker. Then you had to go home and figure out which half was BS and which half was true, right? That was market knowledge, right? Today, you have unbelievable market knowledge, which has induced all this capital that wants to own real estate, why these cap rates are where they are, and capital from around the world. This is a mature asset class today. There's still kind of speaking of, the cowboy mentality, that's not how people think about real estate today. This is a very attractive business, much more technologically sophisticated, a lot more going on, but it's unbelievable where it is today, much more stable, much more resilient. So I think it's very different 30 years ago and today.
Anyone want to add anything to that?
I'd probably add just a little bit, and I think Ernie's right. I think the late 80s was really brutal because of the liquidity situation. For those of you that remember the banks back here, a lot of them sold out just before that recession. And fortunately, it was a good thing, because I think Arizona would have really tanked if they hadn't have, a number of banks hadn't sold out to the national banks at that time. And the ones that did barely got through. Valley stayed for a while and then finally got bought out by Bank One. But, Arizona Bank got bought out by Security Pacific and Continental Bank and Union Bank and all the rest of them. And so, that time was very different, because then those national banks had to basically double down. They had to buy the bank twice in order to keep it afloat to make it through that recession. Of course, we didn't have that same situation this time. And while liquidity and lending has been difficult, it hasn't been anywhere near as difficult as it was back in the late 80s. As Ernie said, there was no money, there was no lending. You were basically holding on to what you got and hoping you didn't have to send it back.
But the evolution, too, was different, because when you went to an RTC auction and they were selling stuff for 10 cents on the dollar, you were trying to buy it for 8 when you should have been paying 15 just to get it. And so that's, it's a different mindset, and that's been the evolution of the business, which you speak of, because people understand the fundamental asset is the important thing to look to. And there was liquidity. It just was really costly if you could get your hands on it. And you had to strike the right balance and deal.
In 2009, people were doing blind REITs, raising capital on the theory that it was the next RTC, that there'd be all this cheap real estate. It really didn't happen. It never really happened.
Thank God that didn't, and I will close. I will answer that question, and this is only Conley's opinion, okay? But you look at the RTC, it was one of the most disastrous situations that's happened to this country and the taxpayers. I didn't even like Charlie Keating, but I looked at what he did, what he created in this town, the housing developments, had the 6th largest national home building company in the country, had all of the people that run top home building companies today work for Charlie Keating. He had the classiest people, the brightest people. Michael Manning, in my opinion, and hopefully there's some attorney that can sue me for defamation on this, should have served the 4 years and 4 months in jail that Charlie Keating did. Charlie Keating was put in jail because the Phoenician would never make it at $250 a night. Phoenician, I believe, is the #1 performing hotel in the world for Starwood Hotels. And you look at Estrella. Estrella was sold for $22 million, $2 million down, later sold, not by Nate Nathan, but by Greg Vogel, for $760 million. So I look at the RTC, it was the most unbelievable, unneeded giveaway in the world. At least they got the recovery a little better. This time, the government realized that they should have, if they would have just joint ventured and worked with the different borrowers. Yes, were there some bad guys that got loans in RTC days? But 90% of those assets, and that's why I'm writing a book today, because I want the future generations, 30, 40 years down the road, to realize the disaster that Manning and those people with the RTC created for the whole world economy, especially in the United States. So the thing that we've gone through in the last 4 or 5 years, at least the government this next time, the government would have had to done one thing, and they would have said, here, the assets that you have, you manage them, you get no fees. We've just worked through hundreds of millions of dollars of problems, but we worked with our lenders. Andrew, we had to keep current. The other ones we had to work with. But I'm just saying, at least the government this time said, here, Rialto Capital, you manage this, and for 5 years you don't pay us any interest, but then we'll figure out how to divide the assets up at the end of the time. So it was much smarter. But if they would have just reached out to us in RTC days, there would have been billions and billions and billions of dollars saved by the taxpayer.
Let me guess, Mike Manning and Sheriff Joe are doing the forward for your book?
Thank you.
Is that right?
There is only one friend like Andrew Cohen. I love him to pieces.